Hi, welcome to Good to Great Schools Australia. I'm Shelley and I'll be guiding you through this professional development session on connected word strategies with Anita Archer. In the following video, Anita Archer shares some research that illustrates the importance of teaching vocabulary.
Now, a researcher by Miller has found that up until grade 6, that about 80% of the words that students add to their lexicon is because someone has taught them the word. So raise your hand if you happen to work with prep through grade 6. Okay, and so for those children, particularly, being certain that we're teaching them vocabulary very well. Now, we still would teach vocabulary all the way through high school, but the difference is they would begin to gain more increasing vocabulary from what they read. Until we get to adulthood, most vocabulary that you gain is through your reading. In fact, there are many correlation studies that have looked at what is the lexicon of words that you use, and lexicon just meaning a group of words, and how much do you read. And there is a very strong correlation between them. The more you read, the more vocabulary you gain.
What is the difference between learning vocabulary in prep to year 6 and learning vocabulary in high school? When learning vocabulary in primary school, students require someone to explicitly teach it to them, whereas in high school, students learn vocabulary through what they read. Listen as Anita Archer continues to share about the importance of teaching vocabulary.
First of all, vocabulary is a part of our receptive language, directly related to reading what, everyone? Comprehension. And it is not, interestingly enough, the best predictor of comprehension in the primary grades. But once we hit 4th grade, then vocabulary is going to be the best predictor of comprehension. In the grades leading up to that, it is fluency, the ability of students to read with an appropriate rate. If I'm very, very slow, I'm going to lose the comprehension. So do I read at a fluent level so I can preserve comprehension? And it's also related to our expressive language, such as writing. So raise your hand if you teach grade 3 or 4. Hey, so right here. So your kids come back next Monday and you say, please write a paragraph about your holiday. And so this is one paper. I had a really nice holiday. We did a lot of nice things. We went to a nice beach. We had a nice dinner. We also got to visit our nice relatives. It was a really nice holiday. And actually, some of you are saying, particularly our special ed teachers, oh my goodness, that was good. But might we hope for better word choice? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. Okay? So it does, in fact, impact the specificity, the clarity of our written messages.
What is the best predictor of comprehension in the early years? How does this differ in years 4 to 6? The best predictor of comprehension in early years is fluency, and the best predictor of comprehension in years 4 to 6 is vocabulary. I'm sure you're going to find the next video quite interesting. It looks at a study which investigates the use of different types of utterances in homes of different demographics with varying degrees of stability across America. It explored the impact it had on vocabulary learning in preschool children.
One of the challenges is, even before you meet these children that you're serving, there's already huge differences in their vocabulary. And one of the best studies on this, and I tried to see if there had been a parallel Australian study, but I didn't find one, but one of the best studies was done at University of Kansas by Hart and Riesling. And actually, resulted in a book called Meaningful Differences. But what they did in this study was they went into homes of children with preschool children that were under the age of kindergarten or prep. So raise your hand if you have a child from 0 to 5 and your own home, okay? And so they put down recording equipment and recorded the interactions of the parents and the children. And then they came back 2 weeks later, did it again, and did it, and over time. And then they transcribed all of those tapes. And they had chosen homes of professionals such as you. They also had homes of working families, but they also had homes of deep poverty. And they then made many analyses, but one analysis was the vocabulary. And so looking here, they found that in homes of professionals such as yourself, at age 4, the students had more than 1,000 words in their personal lexicon, both receptively and expressively. And in homes of poverty, the children had half of that at the age of 4, around 500 words. 1,000 words, 500. 1,000 words, 500 before we've even met them. Now, what was interesting to me was how they accounted for these huge differences. And so they looked at the data of the parents talking. And so raise your hand again if you have a preschool child in your home right now. So here's what I know about you. You are talkers. Talk, 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 talk. True? In fact, in their study, you averaged, look at that first column, more than 2,000 words an hour directed at your preschool child. Oh, talk, 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 talk. In homes of poverty, it was about 600 words. So the amount of language flowing was so significantly different. Now, this is not reflected in this data, but I think it's very critical. Another analysis was, what are the kind of utterances that the parents made? And so one of the way they looked at it were between utterances of expansion. So one day I was at my niece's house, and on the floor was Will, their son, about 3, and he was playing with cars. And his father, Phil, said, so where is the truck going? What kind of cargo is on that truck? Do you need to make a bridge for that truck? Is that truck going to go on a freeway? How long can that truck driver drive? And basically expanded, expanded, expanded on what the child was doing. Eh? And so they looked at categorizing. One category was expansions. The other category was directives. Brush your teeth, put that down, come to dinner, give me that clicker. And so here's what they found. Now, in homes of professionals, oh yes, you also say brush your teeth and definitely give me that clicker. But here's what they found. The expansions far outweighed the directives. So the parents were much more likely to expand than to give a directive. But in homes of poverty, exactly the reverse, significantly higher number of directives than expansions. Well, obviously, directives are almost devoid of vocabulary, where expansions have much richness. So it's not just the quantity of language, but the quality of language that makes a difference.
What were the 2 different types of utterances identified in the study? What were the differences between the use of language in homes in poverty and homes of professionals? Let's move on now and have a look at the next video. Anita Archer will begin to discuss some word learning strategies.
And we could also teach kids word learning strategies. If I was reading connected discourse and I didn't know a word, What might I do to figure out the meaning of that word? So I want you to talk over with your partner what strategies you teach or what strategies you could teach if the students were reading and there was an unknown word and they needed to figure out the meaning of it. So talk with your partner, what would be those strategies, and go.
What strategies could you use to teach your class to help them work out the meaning of an unknown word in a passage? Listen to our next video as Anita Archer explains context clues and the importance of keeping students in the text.
Every group that I went to, their first response was, well, if you didn't know a word and it was in connected discourse, the first strategy you would use is context clues. Raise your hand if you were thinking context clues. Okay? So you'd read the sentence, you read the surrounding sentence, and ask yourself, what does that word mean? Now, actually, if we were teaching kids how to figure out an unknown word, we would always teach them to use context clues first. And here's one of the major reasons. The current focus on comprehension research is showing that if we want to promote comprehension, we got to keep kids thinking in the text. Anything that takes their thinking out of the text reduces their comprehension. So we got to keep them in the text, not out of the text, but in the text, not out of the text, but in the text. Don't you think that you might have to do it? Yes, you're going to have to do the dance to lunch. So any strategy that takes kids out of the text is actually going to reduce their comprehension. Okay? And let me just give you, this is a really important concept because as obvious as that is, we've not always judged comprehension strategies by that variable. But let's say that your whole family goes to this nice resort down here and they rent a big house and they're there, and you brought a book that you have wanted to read for a long time, and you're out on that beautiful deck looking out over the ocean reading your book. And about noon, some family members come and say, are you going to fix us lunch? And you say, look in the refrigerator, make your lunch, bring me a sandwich. And you continue reading. And then it's dinner time and they again appear. Are you going to fix the dinner? No, go to town, get a pizza, bring me one. And you continue reading. Now, she's very into the text. Is it possible she'll have pretty good comprehension? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. But let's say the school year started. She's in a book club, meets every Thursday, and this week at her own house, reading a book that she picked, that she's not begun, and it is Sunday night. So you start reading that book, and as you are reading it, a thought comes to you. Oh, I should have gone to the store because I should take some lunch to school, not school lunch. Oh, darn. And then you go back and you're reading. Oh, no, I have a meeting at 8 o'clock. Who said that? Oh, I did. I am back here. And she keeps popping out, popping out. Is it possible that that will reduce her comprehension? Yes or no? Yes. Next day she picks up that book. She can't remember anything of chapter 1 through 4. She doesn't even know the plot. She doesn't know the character. So this is important because you can actually look at a strategy and say, is it going to take them into the text or out of the text? And that's going to make a difference in their comprehension. Make sense? Yeah. Okay, so that's why we use context clues first. It keeps you in the text.
You've just heard Anita Archer talking about strategies that take students out of the text and strategies that keep them in the text. Think of a word learning strategy that would take students out of the text and a strategy that would keep students in the text. In the next video, Anita Archer talks about using prefixes and suffixes to help students learn the meaning of words.
Many of you said while they're using context clues, they might also use parts of the words. And so one group said, well, they might utilize prefixes or suffixes. They might use the roots and the base words to figure out the meaning. And that should be the second tier of evidence I'm going to use to figure out the word. So just a little question here. So one study looked at the power of prefixes and suffixes to inform the meaning of the word. And I want you to tell your partner which one, if I taught you prefixes or I taught you suffixes, which one would be most powerful in helping you figure out an unknown word. Tell your partner which one and why you believe it, and go.
Which is the most powerful when teaching an unknown word, prefixes or suffixes? Listen as Anita Archer shares her response.
And Michael Graves' study, who taught both, found that it had the most impact on the meaning of the word. And so raise your hand if you also said prefixes. Good job. And they said, well, prefixes are at the beginning of the word, easier to find. They have common pronunciation, unless you're in Australia maybe. And they have common spelling. And they have definitive meanings. So if we have we're pretty certain it means what, everyone? Again. Okay? Suffixes, on the other hand, have as their major role to change the part of speech. So they don't alter the meaning as much as the part of speech. Now it's useful to know the part of speech, like T-I-O-N is a noun, and so that is helpful. If you have O-U-S, it's probably an adjective. That's helpful. But the actual meanings are very abstract, like shun. One day I was teaching in the States, in Michigan, and I said to the students, T-O-N is a noun, shun is a noun, and it is a state of. And a boy raises his hand in grade 6 and says, are you still talking about Michigan? Okay? And so that's how abstract the state of is. It had nothing to do with Michigan. So then many of you said the kids could also look the meaning up. They might go to the back of their book if there's a glossary. Do many of your texts have a glossary? Yes? Or they could get a dictionary. So one study looked at which one would be our best next option. We've used the context clues, we've used the parts of the word. Now we still don't know the meaning, we're going to look it up. Should I use the glossary or the dictionary? And tell your partner which one and why. Talk it over with your partner and go. Many of you said the kids could also look the meaning up. They might go to the back of their book if there's a glossary. Do many of your texts have a glossary? Yes? Or they could get a dictionary. So one study looked at which one would be our best next option. We've used the context clues, we've used the parts of the word. Now we still don't know the meaning, we're going to look it up. Should I use the glossary or the dictionary? And tell your partner which one and why. Talk it over with your partner and go.
Which should you use when teaching vocabulary, a dictionary or a glossary? Why? Now listen as Anita Archer explains the difference between using a dictionary and a glossary for learning new words.
So every partnership I listened to said, well, if you had both, your glossary would be your best bet. And most often the reason was the glossary will define it as it's used in that context. Because so many English words are polysemous or polysemous, of many meanings. And so you often in a dictionary have to sort through which meaning is it. But in the glossary it will define it exactly that way. One group said, well, remembering that you want to keep them cognitively in the text, not out of the text. And the glossary is short, you could find the word much more quickly. And one day a special ed teacher said, you know, if my kids get up to get to the dictionary, they may never return.
What are some of the challenges of using dictionaries to teach new words? So glossaries define the word as it's used in the context of the passage students are reading. This means that students don't have to go sorting through many definitions in a dictionary. Glossaries also help to keep students in the text.
Another way that we can improve vocabulary is getting students to read and read and read some more. Because materials that are in written form always have language higher than conversational English, so that they're going to learn by reading.
Why is reading so important for developing vocabulary? Written texts contain language that is higher than conversational English. This gives students greater exposure to new words.
And it expands particularly, looking at the second bullet, for struggling readers. Mostly because if I don't read accurately and fluently, the big toll is I will not read. May I share with you a study that proved this point? A study that was done by Ann Cunningham and Keith Stanovich. And they looked at the amount that children read across all dimensions of reading. And so let's just say that you are in the top 10% of all of the students in my grade 5 class. And so reading, it comes easily for you. It's not laborious at all, so you read. And you are in the bottom 10%. I know you have good self-esteem, so you can hang in there. So I say, please begin reading the passage that is on page 14. You immediately open up your book, because reading's easy for you. You immediately get on task. But unless I am there to assist you, there's a probability that you don't start reading, true? And when you go home, you take a book, oh, teacher's delight, and you read. And you don't. But in the study, they looked at how many words the children read outside of school and inside of school. And just listen to how they summarize the difference outside of school. You in the top 10%, you in the bottom 10%. By the end of the second day of school, the students that are in the top 10% in terms of reading outside of school will have read more than you will read in the entire school year. So listen again, in the top 10% for reading outside of class, you will, by the second day of school, have read more than she will read in the entire school year. Now what that tells us is we'd better be certain that our students, before they leave grade 3, read accurately and fluently, because this is the toll. They simply don't read. Okay? We start with differences. It grows because vocabulary begets vocabulary, and the struggling readers, we have even more difference, and then English language learner adds to it. So every grade in school, we have increased differences in vocabulary. That's why we really have to make this a focus. In every class, in every interaction, what am I going to do to improve our vocabulary?
Describe the diversity of students' vocabulary in your classroom. What strategies could you use to begin closing the vocabulary gap? That brings our session today to a close. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in our next session using read alouds to teach vocabulary with Anita Archer.